Welcome back, Whisky fans, and Merry Christmas. I hope you've all got lots of wonderful malty treats from Father Christmas. Our Whisky Premium Whisky Advent Calendar is no more, but I think it's been a pretty good journey. There was always a question at the start of, is it worth £250? And there were quite a few drams in there that could have been better, but there's also some really good stuff in there and also some really unusual stuff. For me personally, I think it has been worth the money. It's a little bit concerned towards the end that we were getting a few, not duds, but semi-duds in a row, but got some really nice things towards the end of the calendar, and we had some crackers right at the start, really. So I'm just going to put my leaderboard on the screen again, so we can have a little rundown of what we've had. So I've done a little bit of colour coding. All of the stuff that I think is really good, highly recommendable, I've put in green, and all the stuff that's not so recommendable, I've put in red at the bottom. One elephant in the room that I do want to mention that a lot of people might have been a bit surprised by, and to be honest, myself, I was surprised by, is the Glen Scotia 18. Now, I'd be completely open to trying the Glen Scotia 18-year-old again. It's entirely possible that because it was just a little 30ml dram sample, that I just had a bad day, and if I tried it again, maybe I'd like it a little bit more. Because, to be honest, where I ended up placing the Glen Scotia 18, I'd probably expect a little bit more than that from Glen Scotia. Now, I must say that Glen Scotia is not my favourite Campbelltown distillery. It's probably not many people's favourite Campbelltown distillery. And if I'm completely honest, I did prefer their old range before the revamp about 7 or 8 years ago, the old Highland Cow bottles. I quite liked those. I thought it was a really good, no-nonsense, age statement orientated approach to semi-craft whisky. I think since they've had that revamp, it's a little bit disappointing, in my opinion, that everything seems to have a cask treatment or finish. And me personally, I like Glen Scotia, but I'm not entirely sure that they deserve the full praise and hype that they're currently enjoying. Although saying that, at least they're trying, and they are doing better than most distilleries out there at the moment. So going back to the leaderboard, you'll see that I've made a few additions in that I've added the price and the ABV to each of the entries on the leaderboard. I was initially going to add whether or not they were craft presentations to the leaderboard as well, and I kind of gave up on that idea because I realised that there really aren't that many craft presentations, and that's not just a reflection of the Premium Whisky Advent Calendar, it's really a reflection of the whisky industry as a whole, because you think about all the distilleries out there and all the expressions. Craft presentations are actually rarer than you think. The number of distilleries out there that put out bottlings where it's 46% ABV plus, it's got an age statement, it's natural colour and non-chill filtered, and worst of all, that they tick all those boxes and they actually tell you that they've ticked those boxes, is actually really low. I think that a lot of us whisky fans, whisky nerds, whatever you want to call it, and especially people on WhiskyTube, we're under this impression that craft presentation is something that is, you kind of expect it and demand it. It's something that we're owed. But when you really start looking at all the distilleries and everything that's available, you realise that craft presentation is actually something that we should be really grateful for, because there's just not that much of it out there. Even the Ledaig 18-year-old from Tobermory on the Isle of Mull, which I've put at the number 1 place on my leaderboard, it's got an age statement, it's non-chill filtered, says so on the label, it's 46.3% ABV, so they've even gone a little bit above and beyond the 46% mark there. But I remember a few years ago when I visited Tobermory Distillery, where Ledaig is made, they were making a big deal about how their whisky is non-chill filtered, and I thought, and is it natural colour as well? And they said, well, we do put a little bit of colouring on our whisky, but you can't taste it. Which almost makes you want to commit an act of violence. Anyway, yeah, craft presentation, rarer than you think. But going back to the leaderboard, what is really good to see is that all of the top 5 on my leaderboard, and remember that these were tasted and judged and put onto the leaderboard blind, all of the top 5 places are all available for less than £90. And if you take out the Perspective series, they're all available for around about 80 or less. So whereas we have been looking at the premium whisky advent calendar, a lot of those good whiskies that are coming in the top places are actually semi-affordable, or at least not prohibitively priced. What is really interesting is if you look lower down on the leaderboard, there does seem to be a little bit of a clump of rather pricey and also low ABV malts, maybe just above the bottom of the leaderboard, including the infamous Johnnie Walker Blue Label. Other surprises on the leaderboard, well, the most expensive whisky that we have on the leaderboard that's still available, the £200 Mortlach 20-year-old, is a good whisky, but I couldn't in good conscience put that in the green category because it's just so expensive, especially for the ABV that they offer it at, especially when you compare it to the much more reasonable whiskies above it on the leaderboard. Rather pleasant surprises are it's the fact that we've got a blended whisky yet again for 2 years running in the Perspective Series 21-year-old from Berry Brothers and Rudd, and the 12-year-old whisky from the Isle of Arran, the Man with the Golden Glass. So a 12-year-old whisky and a blended whisky coming in the top 5. Something else that I'm rather proud of myself is Gullivers 47. So Gullivers 47 is a little bit of a surprise entry. It's a youngish English whisky from Norfolk using East Anglian barley, and apart from a huge sense of regional pride because it's from my home distillery, I think that it's really good to see a wild whisky of any sort placing so highly in the leaderboard. It just really goes to show that Scotland really can't afford to rest on their laurels because they're just really not the only country in the game when it comes to making quality whisky anymore. Another one that I want to mention just because I think that it's really good value is the Crabbies 15-year-old. Okay, it's only 43%, but I thought that was a really well made, really quality, really enjoyable whisky, decent age statement, at least it's not 40%, and coming in at £48, I thought that one was really good value, especially when you consider that although Crabbies has been around for a long time, Crabbies is really a company that we don't really talk about a great deal. As for the other end of the leaderboard, the not so great entries, although to be fair I would say that almost all of these whiskies were enjoyable and I got something out of tasting them. It's just that these ones that I've highlighted in red, they're just the less spectacular of the leaderboard. In particular, I think I would give the old Golden Raspberry Award. It's going to have to go to Johnnie Walker Blue Label, sitting down there, 4th from the bottom at £145. So you can get 2 bottles of Talisker 18 or the Arran for about the same price as 1 bottle of Piss Weak 40% Johnnie Walker Blue Label. I think most of us as whisky geeks, we know what Johnnie Walker Blue Label is. It's more of an exercise in marketing flannel than it is an exercise in making good whisky. But it does really kind of surprise you in a way that Diageo feel that they can still ask for such a high price of what is essentially a rather average whisky with a very, very low strength. Also like to give an honourable mention to the Balvenie 21-year-old Portwood finish, which is an enjoyable whisky, but a very flawed whisky, both from how heavy-handed that port treatment was and how low the strength was. But the real kicker with that one is the £175 price tag. Anyway, really enjoyed doing this one, and I hope all of you at home have had a great time following along with me. I'd like to say a thank you for everyone that's been watching, and a thank you to everyone that's subscribed. If you have been watching my videos but you haven't subscribed, please do, because it does help a lot. But for now, Merry Christmas, and I'll see you in the new year. Cheers.